People say, Brooklyn saying,
Welcome back to So You Want to Be a Game Master. I really want to run games, but I don't think I'll be any good. This one hurts. I will start by saying this. It is extremely difficult to run a TRPG wrong. Generally speaking, if you're a decent human being and you care about the fun of your players, you're going to do fine. Stop doubting yourself. Your playstyle is absolutely valid. Grab a pre-written adventure and jump on in. Nothing to worry about. I really want to run games, but I don't know where to get started. This is honestly one of the more common issues that I've heard in my time. Well, this answer might sound obvious, but it's obvious for a reason. The first thing you're going to want to need is a copy of the Dungeon Master's Guide or the equivalent for whatever system you're running. Remember that for some systems this may just be the core rulebook. However, if you are running D&D, you can also pick up the starter set, which comes with pretty much everything you need to get started, including a sample adventure called the Mines of Fendelver. Speaking of which, I would highly recommend running a pre-written adventure for your first game. They are the microwave dinners of the TRPG world, and you pick them up at some websites for about $1. However, for the thrifty, or those on a tight budget, Wizards of the Coast has released a PDF of the basic rules, which is great for DMs. I will put a link to it in the comments. I really want to run games, but I don't feel like I know enough about the game. Do you know the basic rules? Can you play the game without asking a bunch of questions? If you answered yes to either of those, you should know enough to run a game. One of the reasons that I so highly recommend running a pre-written adventure for your first game is it should give you all of the information you need to run the game while also allowing you to find your style of play. So know the basics, grab your party, grab an adventure, and get into it. No worries. I really want to run games, but I feel like I need to know everything about the game world. You don't. Next question. But seriously, if you're running a pre-written adventure or module, all you really need to know is the information written down in that adventure. And you might want to know some of the information about what your players have chosen for their characters, e.g. gods, organizations, that sort of thing. However, if you are delving into the wonderful world of homebrew or sandbox worlds, the main piece of advice I would give is this. You need to know enough about your world to comfortably make up what you don't. And as a game master, you will get used to making stuff up in play. However, if you do, write it down. Two other skills that are very useful in this context are improv and reskinning. I will talk about those in another video. I really want to run games, but there are no players in my area. This can be a tough one for obvious reasons. I can present to you two options. Your friendly local game shop and virtual tabletop platforms. If you do have a friendly local game shop in your area, even if it is just a board game or pop culture shop, most of them will at least have connections to tabletop programs or groups. Or if you have friends that live overseas, out of reasonable driving range, or you're going through some sort of pandemic lockdown, then a virtual tabletop platform might be what you're looking for. Google it, there's a bunch of them, and some of them are free. Even running games through Discord can be feasible. Also, there are a lot of tabletop groups and pages on social media looking for GMs. I really want to run games, but I've had a bad experience with it. This can be a rough area to talk about because I have heard some very bad experiences and I don't want to disqualify those. Generally speaking, if you have had a bad experience on either side of the game screen, learn from it. Analyze it. Figure out what about the situation was handled poorly and think about what you can do better in the future. If this experience was with another person, sit down and have a conversation with them after the game about it. Just as in life, in tabletop games, we make mistakes. And as long as you own up to it, apologize, and learn, you'll be fine. I want to run games, but I'm worried that a more experienced GM will pull me up on the rules and derail my game. Oh lordy, I feel this one. There is a line that rings true for most tabletop games. It is written in most books in some form, and is solely responsible for the fluidity of most systems. GM has final ruling. If a player raises a rule or mechanic that you're not sure about, and they're starting to argue and slow down the game, just make a ruling, write it down, and let them know that you'll check the proper rules in the break or after the game. If they continue to press the matter, just let them know that that is your ruling and you need to keep the game moving. I want to run a homebrew game, but I'm worried that my players won't like my story. This is an interesting question, because I've found it's very rarely the story that players don't like. As far as story goes, remember that the stars of your story are the player characters, and they will find ways to have their own fun. As far as players not enjoying a game, I find that often boils down to the themes of the game rather than the story. Imagine you sat down for a tabletop game expecting a Lord of the Rings high fantasy epic. Instead, we're greeted with a dark and gritty Game of Thrones style political game. Good chance you're not going to have a good time. These are things that should be discussed and explored in your session 0 or your pre-game session. Talk to your players about the theme of the game that you want to run. See if there are themes that your players enjoy and see if you can include them. I want to run games, but I'm worried about the Mercer Effect. Oh boy. For those of you who don't know, the Mercer Effect is the idea that due to the popularity of Critical Role, that all GMs are being held to this impossible standard of Matt Mercer. While we focus on this effect, we're missing the key point of it. You are not Matt Mercer. Unless you are Matt Mercer, in which case, hi. Anyway, you are talking about an experienced and professional voice actor who has dedicated most of his life to the performing arts and Dungeons & Dragons. Got a fair advantage on most of us. However, honestly, with the Mercer Effect, I find it often boils down to communication. If you think your players aren't having a good time, talk to them. Find out things they want in a game, things they like about your game, areas that you could improve in. Being a game master is about learning and adapting, and you can't do that without communicating. I want to run games, but I'm not comfortable doing voices. You don't have to. It's your game, run it how you want. There are many GMing styles, and not all of them include doing voices. All of them are valid to the right players.
You can go whole hog with accents and inflections.
Or you can adjust your posture and just change your tone so your players know that you're speaking in character. Or you can just narrate what your characters say the same way as you narrate what they do, just so that your players know what's happening. And while this may affect levels of immersion for some players, at the end of the day, it's all about what you're comfortable with. And if you're not comfortable doing funny voices, then don't do them. Thank you for watching. Please follow for more and comment anything that's stopping you from running games. I'd love to help you become a game master. Bye.